I just packed my car, a small Peugeot 106. So I drove all the way down there in that shitty car, 1.2 liter gasoline engine. I remember I was driving on the Autobahn in Germany and the whole car was shaking in 140 kilometers an hour. But I was on an adventure. I was like breaking out of my life in Oslo and just going there to discover, where does flavor come from. And I came to Italy and a small mountain village in Tuscany, Sassofortino, and finally arrived. And I was like, shit, I don't speak Italian. So that was a rough 6 months. I'm an enologist, one of the few, and a strange thing to be when you're from Norway. When I left Norway in 2010, there was no wineries there. Maybe some hobbyists with a few plants in their garden and stuff. 10 years later, suddenly there's wineries. So it's almost like I was out there for a reason, and I came back and suddenly I'm finding myself almost working full-time as an enologist in Norway. I really believe that we have a great climate for wine growing. I mean, it's super marginal. But flavors, we always in fruit and berries, we have amazing purity of flavors. We have acidity, freshness. We have not naturally a high alcohol, which I also think is really interesting. So down here we have some plantings of Pinot Noir and Pinot Précoce and Chardonnay, Weissburgunder, so Pinot Blanc. And basically it's a small test field that we see what's possible for now, and then we're gonna plant more of what we think is the right cultivar to plant here. Here we have a Chardonnay, and it's actually getting close to maturity. I guess we're somewhere around 8 to 9% alcohol potential. So it's now, I guess, middle of October, and that means that we have roughly 2 weeks more of all right temperatures. So it could be that it's going to work. It could be. So let's see. Yeah, not too green, not too acidic. Quite okay, especially for base wine sparkling. Also, it's really cool that these grapes, since the plants are quite young, all of these grapes are really close to the ground, so they receive a lot of humidity, but you can still see there is just a tiny amount of rot on them, and that's really awesome. That means that it's possible to do even in really rainy seasons with a lot of humidity. They hang so well through all of the kind of weather that we had of the last few weeks. You see that kind of the pulp is sticking to the seed. They call it baby snot, and it's an indication that you're not quite ripe. It doesn't mean that you are or are not. It's just an indication. But generally, when you see the seeds are starting to change color, you know that the seed are getting close to ripe, meaning that it can fall to ground and create a new plant. So it's another indication that you're reaching maturity, both phenolically and also sugar-wise. So that's quite promising to see, even though it's very late here. I mean, October can be whatever. We can have -7 and then season's definitely over. But also the skin itself, you can see that it's starting to, I mean, it had a rough season. June, July and August, 3 months of really good growing season, and then things can collapse very quickly at the end of August and September. And we really need those 2 months to pull through and get ripeness enough for making sparkling wines anyway. So our biggest challenges is I can say you don't have a really stable month. Every month is quite hectic. You can have rain, you can have 7 degrees, you can have 30 degrees. We don't really have a stable window. It's all just really full on, and every season is very different. I guess that's the same thing for everybody, but our growing season is so short. So if we don't have that extra 2-3 hours of sunlight during midsummer, I don't think we could have reached the ripeness level that we need. So that's some of the challenges that we have for sure. Apart from that is also same as everywhere else, basically birds and insects, fungus, so many different things.
Hey! Hey!
Allowing yourself to be taken down that path allowed me to meet Nils. In many ways, in an unlikely relationship.
Ja, med samarbeidet med Eirik så er jo også noe av dette her som jeg har tenkt på som en sånn videre følge av det at vi begynte med den eplemosten, det at vi har utviklet oss mer og mer mot å produsere cider og ikke minst vin. Det er jo ideer som jeg har hatt hele tiden, men som jeg aldri liksom har klart å realisere da. Og det er jo muligheten, for det har jo skjedd nå med hans kunnskap, og det at han har kommet med, og det at vi har et selskap sammen hvor vi har kommet i gang med det her. Så i år er første året som vi har høstet på disse vinstokkene. Og vi skal plante mer. Betydelig mer. Sånn som utviklingen i det norske samfunnet opplevelser, det at du skaper entusiasme, at noe liksom skjer, som veien vi må gå, siden vi så små aktører, vi har så liten gård, så det vi må fange, og en del av det jo nettopp det at du produserer alkoholholdige drikker.
It's a fantastic rhubarb wine in this case. The fruit is from Søndre Sandøy, so an island in a national park on the other side of the Oslofjord. And it's just an amazing purity of aroma. I think that's what we can do best in Norway is that purity of fruit. It's crystal clear rhubarb. Boom! It will rip your teeth out and it will make you go bald when you drink it. And it's just like when you were a kid and you went out in the garden, you find the rhubarb bush, so acidic, but then you get a bowl of sugar and you dip the rhubarb into it and you ate it. That's exactly how this tastes when you add a little bit of dosage to it. Champagne method traditional, fruit wine with rhubarb. It would be like 4 months on bottle aging. And then we do a disgorgement and we add the dosage, about 20 grams residual. It's rhubarb in full essence. You see here, you have the baby snot that I talked about earlier. We are on the edge in terms of what we can do here. People will take the wine and the projects more serious if you grow Vitis vinifera, which is your Chardonnays or your Pinot Noirs. You will have people's attention immediately. While most of what we plant and what we know we can grow is PV sorts. So that's kind of hybrids. So that's your Rondos, your Solaris, and other kinds, Johanniter, Sauvignon Gris, all these ones. Many of those ones we know we can do and we can ripen them every year. So super important for us to have high proportions of that, so you can actually make wine every year. But then, we need to experiment, like you see here, with the small plantings of other things to really see what we can do. It's quite a bit behind, but it's promising. If you get a larger plant with a little bit more capacity to ripen, and also probably more in balance, then I think it's possible to also get this one close to ripeness, at least for sparkling wine. But for red wine, maybe 2 out of 10 years or something like that. So we won't be a red wine producer just yet. I love sparkling, so I'm totally happy with that. For me, it's such an interesting product with different facets. You can go in many directions. You can make base wines, soleras. You can make vintage, non-vintage. You know, have a lot to play with. And come on, who doesn't like to drink sparkling wine? I mean, we don't care if it's from Norway or it's from somewhere else. If it's sparkling, it's good. You know, it's interesting. Everybody wants to drink it. So I'm happy, man. I want to dedicate the rest of my life to make sparkling wine in Norway, basically. You know, it's just imagine how fun it would be to have that, you know, production going, and you have many vintages, many styles, and you're drinking something that gives a lot of pleasure to people on the backbone of champagne, that people bring or buy a bottle of your product because they're celebrating something. I think also is really nice. I guess that's why I want to do it. I want to see what it can become in Norway. You know, you want to see, you want to taste it, you want to observe what is the taste here. Their language is the grapes. That's how they speak. You know, that's the sentence of the year. I think that's just incredibly interesting. All this effort for that little plant, you know. That's how it is. Both in New Zealand and in Italy, there's always a battle between the fruit grower and the birds. So if there's 100 starlings flying in here and they're picking all the berries, basically what we have is useless. We can't make wine. And then they come in such large numbers that they can, you know, eat tons in a day or damage crop. So you need to have net, you need to protect your crop. And then we have to try to find other ways of solving it with a minimum amount of impact. I'm working with 4 or 5 different projects, and basically my role is to help people to get up and do the right things right away. So we don't have to make all of these mistakes that you do when you don't know what you're doing. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I'm the wheel. How different estates are shaping their flavor profiles and how they are interpreting their chaos.
I talked to a French producer a couple of years ago, and I asked him what he think was the most difficult to start in the wine business, and he told me the 200 first years. We planted the first 1,000 vines, mostly Solaris, in 2018. 1 year later, in 2019, we planted 5,000 more vines, also some Rondo. When we started, it was quite difficult to find information about where to buy wines, how to grow it, and also how to make good wine. So when we get in touch with Eirik in 2023, it made a huge step in quality, both in growing grapes and also making good wines. And his education and his experience from cold climate winemaking meant a lot to us.
Where we're located now is in Lierdalen, 40 minutes southwest of Oslo. 20 minutes drive that way, you are at Drammensfjorden, which is obviously a fjord part of the ocean. So it's a little bit special macroclimate. It becomes kind of continentally warm here, but you also have some warming influence coming from the fjord.
So we are at the Egge farm. It was bought by the family in 1702, so it's the 9th generation who owns the farm and has been there all the time since then. The location of Lier Valley is known because of quality. Egge is kind of further into the valley on a hillside. On both sides we have some, not mountains, but smaller hillsides. We don't have so much sickness in the area, luckily. It was not allowed to do any alcoholic production until 2005. The innovative Marius Egge went to France, brought French people to Norway. In 2010, he wanted to plant some grapes. The first planting was just outside the farm here. It was a field on moraine soil. I think it was 5,000–6,000 plants of grapes. Today we have about 21,000 wine plants on the farm. Yeah, we are making one sparkling wine, and that is Egge 1, based on Solaris and Pinot Noir. You have bubbles that are thin and elegant instead of the big bubbles that you find in Charmat method. Solaris grapes is known to have a little bit of the edelflower and gooseberry in tones. I also sometimes find hints of apples, fresh in style. You have quite acidity because it's no dosage in it. You can also have some brioche or some bread tones because the longer time on the sediment gives a little bit of this flavors and aromas, and then relatively fresh finish on the palate. 5,000 to 6,000 bottles at the moment, and then we are waiting for the new vineyard. So potentially we can do 21,000 bottles. What has been a success for Egge is we were the first one who did the ice cider in Norway. And it's based on the same as you find in Germany and Austria, so ice wine. So what we do is to harvest a certain type of apple that has this character with high acidity and high sugar. So we use a little bit different apples in Iseple than we do in the cider. So it's Rubinsteppe and Tohuko in addition to Gravenstein. So what we do is to press apple when they're ripe and perfect. We put them in tanks, 1,000-liter tanks, and directly into minus 22 degrees for 4 to 5 days. And the first thing that freezes is the water. When this is crystallized, we take it out from the cooling, the freezer. And then the heart of the apple goes out naturally, and the water stays behind. So at that stage, it's about 500 grams of sugar. We still have the great acidity. And then we start the fermentation process. And high sugar, it gives it challenging to ferment. So it takes close to a year to ferment it to 10% alcohol. We are using about 25 to 30 kilos of apples to make 1 liter of this dessert wine. So a lot of apples. The benefit of being in the north, to have this cool climate, that apples are very acidic. The final product has 260 grams of sugar, but acidity is 27 grams per liter. So you have a fresh, sweet dessert wine. It's been a big success for us, and it's always opening people's eyes when they taste it. Even dessert wine producers are envy about the acidity. I think it's 8 or 9 times we have been the world's best fruit dessert wine. 2 months ago, we got the best in category again in the world for the dessert wine. So this is a unique product that we are doing here at the farm. When you open it, it's very fresh in style, in the nose. A little bit of the deeper apple tones. In the flavor, you have some caramel or caramelized fruits. You have apple crumbs. You have a little bit cinnamon. Complex wine, but the most important here is the freshness of it. We had the benefit of having long sunny days in our region. So during the summertime, the sun goes down at 11 o'clock in the evening, and it doesn't go really dark either. You have, of course, a shorter growing season. The most sparkling wines I've tasted in England or UK has made it for several years on the sediment. So it's up to 6 years. 5 years is normal, so it's quite a long time. So you get these fantastic aromas. And this is what we have to do in Norway as well, I think, to get the more elegant nose in our product. And we are talking to Danish producers, to Swedish producers, how the experiences are, what they did to improve, etc. So we are kind of in the same boat in Scandinavia, and we talk to each other. To compare Norwegian sparkling wine, even if it's made in a traditional method, to champagne is difficult because we are a young country, a wine country. It takes a long time to make good quality wine, and I tasted quite a few of the Norwegian ones, and we are far from it. Even the Scandinavian side, it is not really comparable to champagne, but it has an identity because we use the same grapes mostly in Scandinavia. It is a completely different style of aroma picture and tasting because of especially the Solaris that gives its identity.
The first 500 wines we planted was with the idea that I would be sitting in a hammock and drinking wine, watching them. At some point, I had to quit my daytime job, and the hammock is gone. When we realized we could produce wine in Norway and also the wine could be suitable for serving food, then we decided to go for the wine. We never sold anything, we just served it all here. I'm quite fond of the idea that I do the wines first in the field, then we bring them in here and we try not to spoil the quality. We try to turn it into wine, to the glass, and I can follow them through the process becoming wine. And actually after I can follow them in the glass and through the persons who's drinking the wine. So I witnessed the grapes from their birth and until they're drunk up. The whole circle, really. I think that's nice with the wine. This is the only place in the world you can taste it. We only have 2,000 wines, which in Norway, at least 10 years ago, that was quite a lot. Now it's starting to get quite small, but the cost in Norway to produce wine is quite high, so if we should sell it like through Vinmonopolet, I don't think we would be able to make a living of it. I know in Scandinavia they always talk about the rondo taste, and it's not in a positive meaning. But I think the rondo is the one I'm most happy with, because rondo is a more difficult grape to produce good wine. When someone is here in 21 drinking Solaris, if they come back in 25 and I serve them Solaris, I want them to recognize the wine from the last time. Rondo is a bit more difficult to have it similar each year. What's concerning me most through the season, I think, will be the time of the flowering, which is end of June. The weather is quite variating, to put it in a nice way. Valeria, my good helper from Italy, she says during the flowering we don't want heavy rain and we don't want heavy wind. And like last year, all of June was heavy rain, heavy wind, and under 10 degrees. It's not like producing beer is quite more simple. It's 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So if you're unlucky, you just start over again after 3 weeks. With the wines, you know, it's another year before you can do it better. When it's raining, we always get the wind from the west and it dries up the wines in like 3 minutes. So once wine farmer, you start to see all the positive things in in the day. And actually, the west wind it's like a cold factor for the wine, so it's not positive. But I think it's positive for the diseases because it dries up everything in a short time. First, we make basic wine. White rosé, so we just add like a champagne yeast just to make sure all the sugar turns into alcohol. Once the basic wine is finished, somewhere before Christmas, we bottle it and we add like 14, just below 14 grams of sugar each bottle, cork it, and we leave it totally for 9 months from we start with the basic wine until we finish it. So it's the traditional method of sparkling wine, champagne method. Wine production is absolutely here to stay. We will be, of course, a wine-producing country, but I think sparkling wine will have a very important role in the wine production. For red and white wine, it will be a bit more difficult to do it year by year, though I think the sparkling wine, we can build something that can be a good brand and a good country to produce. At least we have the nights with all the lights, which rest of Europe don't have. The wines, at least Solaris and some other varieties, are quite happy to be here. Yeah, I think there will be wine, but we also have issues with the cost in Norway to produce wine. And also, I think we need some years to find the wine style for Norway. What's it gonna be? Because now it's a bit Wild West.
Originally, there was a Norwegian wine. The first guy that actually made Norwegian wine is called Svein Erik Hansen. You heard of him? Was sold on Monopoly, I think, for 1,500 a bottle, like an art project. Munken wine. He actually asked the Munch family the permission to put painting on the wine label, and he was growing Pinot Noir partially in a greenhouse in Orton. Was the first one. I am responsible for a bigger wine project here at Turbune Hotel. We have 6,000 vines, and I'm still responsible for my older project I started in Norway, Filtvet, with 2,000 vines. There is a big discussion, what is Norwegian wine or Nordic wine? What kind of grapes? Is still moving. Because nowadays, compared to 20 years ago, when they started, people they are testing much more traditional variety, like Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, so it's evolving. So I think it's not unlikely, if the climate change continues, maybe in 20 years, or maybe less, maybe more, nobody knows for sure, it's going to be closer to English wine, what happened there. And there they argue because, English or sparkling, that's the definition. So Norwegian wine is not a protected definition or name, is work in progress, under development. But very exciting because we got positive feedback. So there is potential, yeah. What is particular in Norway, even more than Denmark and Sweden, is the latitude gives a lot of, not necessarily growing days, but light hours, which means that all the variety starts very slowly and they have exponential growth very quickly in a few months because there are a lot of sunlight, a lot of sun hours, which traditionally is not the best for wines, according to French people. They should be slow, but who knows? We can discuss about in a few years. Now we are at Turbune Road Hotel, Jenaker, inland, 1 hour from Oslo Fjord, but here we have Ransfjord. So there is also fjord, even is an inland fjord, which helps the microclimate a lot. It's a project that started 4 or 5 years ago, so still in the starting project, with 6,000 vines. and the goal is to probably escalate later on. Yeah, if things goes well. It's part of a bigger project. Yeah, so we have another vineyard, yeah, in Oslo Fjord, which I work with. Yeah, part of the same project. In order to have ripe grapes, we need at least 1 meter canopy. So it means nearly 7 or 8 leaves for cluster. It means you can have 2 clusters, potentially, but it's a discussion. 1 meter high canopy to get the maximum sun exposure, because we have more sunlight hour, but the sun is not as strong as in Burgundy. In Norway is a very special local law which forbid marketing of alcohol, especially in social media or other media. It's kind of challenging because it's difficult to speak about our product. We currently focus on experience combined to the hotel and other happenings because we are allowed to. We can speak about growing, but not much about wine or even grapes sometimes. It's difficult, yeah. So I hope they will change the legislation about it, yeah, because it's not good today, no. There's a work in progress in Norwegian Growing Association in mapping the producer. Mostly is around the fjord, the coastline, the southern western part, but there are hobby growers up to Lofoten. Just the hobby growers. So mostly the best climate, microclimate is around the coastline and fjord, south and western part, mostly, yeah. So include everything from Oslo Fjord, Kristiansand, not much in Bergen, no, but it's moving, it's going, yeah. There are at least 150 growers, many hobby growers.
I tell my wife, now we have to sit down and we have to look at the wines and we have to remember. We're quite lucky, privileged to do this. I think the guests who come here and drink the Signa wine have better romantic moments than I can achieve. It's the wines is work, 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 and work.
The future for the wine will be also to keep some wines even longer on the sediment. It will be a kind of a upscale quality product to see potential of keeping it longer.
If we compare ourselves with other wine growing regions, in Europe that might be at their 1000th anniversary, so we have a little bit of time ahead of us to find out exactly where we need to be. But for the moment, it's a great start. You can't get around the fact that we are in a very marginal place. I think this is a really good place for starting an adventure of wine. We're also here located in the middle of a small city, so it's quite, in a sense, German in that you see the tiny wineries into the tiny villages, and it's a little bit like that here. We are, surrounded by people that live here, and that means that this farm can be a part of kind of that community. So we would like to see more people coming in here. We would like to have like a cellar door, a tasting room for people to come and taste and enjoy. I came very interested in winemaking. I left very interested in farming, because if you distill your idea down enough, you understand that what you do out here, what you do with the land, how you take care of it and how you farm is essentially where flavor comes from.